organized show by the Chinese Emergency Medical Society and the Chinese Medical Association. I'm Dr. Harry Ralte. I'm a primary care physician working in Bombay, India. At the outset, I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Nobs Roy, guidance, support, and mentor. Okay. Before I start my talk, which will last roughly 8 to 10 minutes, I'll just stress on what it is that I'm going to talk on. In brief, what I'm going to talk on is the majority of the disasters happen in the developing world, but the literature of the world does not reflect this. So, this is a simple pie diagram showing what I just said. In short, 85% of disasters and 95% of disaster-related deaths occur in the developing world. But this fact does not contribute significantly to the world's peer-reviewed literature. And it is the world's peer-reviewed literature, as we know, which forms the basis for dealing with future disasters. Now, a look at our methodology. We searched the free PubMed database using the medical subject heading mesh term disasters. And what we got was a total publication number of 16,196. We further refined this search by using the secondary disaster mesh term, developing nations. And with that, we got 438 publications out of 16,000 plus. Now, in further analysis, we found that only 1/5 of these 438 papers were authored by authors from the developing world. So another pie diagram to stress what I just said. The large blue C you see are the total disaster medicine publications, out of which that small red zone is literature dealing with developing world disasters. In short, less than 1%, 0.69% to be precise, citations in PubMed disaster-related literature dealt with developing world disasters. Now, a word on authorship. Now you can see that 4/5 of the publication on developing world disasters were authored by developed world authors, and only 1/5 by developing world authors. Now, this is not different from a study done not so long ago by Sumadipala and his colleagues on the 5 major high-impact medical journals of the world: JAMA, Lancet, BMJ, Annals of Internal Medicine, and NEJM. He found that only 6.5% of the articles in all these journals were authored by authors from the developing world, which actually has 90% of the world's population. Before I proceed to my next slide, let us just revise the levels of evidence as formulated by the Center of Evidence-Based Medicine, UK. Now, we all know the strongest level of evidence is level 1, which are studies or papers with RCTs or prospective cohort studies, going all the way down to level 5, which are case reports, expert opinion, or comments. Now, this is helpful to revise because we found in our study that there were no level 1 studies. And as the speaker before me just mentioned, that it is not possible or very difficult to carry out level 1 studies in disaster situations. Now, the heartening thing to note was, of the 4 studies which fall in the level 3 category, three of them were authored by developing nation authors, and only 1 was by a developed nation author. Now, I would say that long-term studies with follow-up in a developing world disaster can be done by locals rather than visitors. Now, the question that comes to mind is, what type of articles would have predominated the literature on developing world disasters? The answer to that is this. Now, almost half the articles were either original research articles or reviews. A quarter of them were commentaries, and the rest, as you can see. Now, around 36% of these articles were original research articles, but on examination we found that 97% of these original research articles were level 4-5 evidence articles. What were the themes in the publications? The predominant themes, as we heard earlier, were missions, humanitarian aid, healthcare provisions during the acute phase of developing world disasters. A less number of papers dealt with tools, mental health, specific diseases, conflicts, ethics, and epidemiology. We also found that 2.7% were collaborative studies. This is not uncommon, not at all. And collaborative studies are important because they help build the scientific base of the developing world. They give the required push needed for high-quality evidence in disaster medicine. Now, what we found that the major focus on the disaster publications of the developing world was on acute response phase. and also on short-term recovery. So this was the predominant view in the indexed PubMed literature. So it is not unfair to say that there is a publishing silence on developing world disasters, and what might be the reasons for this. Few important ones are poor funding, naturally. Most of the hospitals in developing world countries are committed to provide clinical care, service, and not research. Number 3, English is not a predominant language or not the first language of many developing world authors, so that may be a problem. Poor methodology in the papers that were done could have led to rejection by peer-reviewed journals. There could be a possible publication bias, as we saw in the earlier slides. So what we learned is there are less publications on the developing world disasters, and even those that are present have lower levels of evidence. So the developing world research publications need elevation to the level of the developed world. Now we all know there are documents of organizations like WHO, UN, Red Cross, MSF, Oxfam, etc. They provide the knowledge base, which is very useful, and these internal documents are currently the best practice guidelines for field workers, disaster relief workers. But we must keep in mind that most of these internal documents are level 5 evidence or expert reviews. Now keeping this in mind, what might be the research priorities? In management lingo, that was the as-is situation. What can we do about it? Now a few issues we can look into is mental health, the resilience of community, especially in resource-poor settings, occupational rehabilitation of victims of a disaster, long-term economic outcomes of victims of the disaster, ethical issues, a slowly growing important subject. How ethical is it to study a vulnerable population just recently struck by disaster? Some other important issues that can be researched are public health interventions, tools validated for developing nations. Now yesterday Dr. Nobbs Roy in his talk said that the resource-rich and technology-rich developed world have separate tools for disasters occurring in them. They cannot simply be transplanted into the developing world. We have to develop tools of our own. Now, also, we can understand that within this subset of developing nations, there are risk differences between individual nations. For example, India, China, although they are clubbed with developing economies, they may respond better to a disaster than other emerging economies. This is another issue that can be studied. So in short, local research agenda must be developed because this helps develop indigenous research. The focus should be on prevention, mitigation, preparedness and planning rather than on the acute phase of disasters. Long-term recovery studies are needed with more than 80% follow-up. We need to standardize definitions and research methodology. I stress again that funding equals the pace of research. We all know, we see it in the media, that millions of dollars are spent on the acute phase of disasters in humanitarian aid, building up field hospitals, mission hospitals. Now, even if a little bit of it was to channel towards promoting research in disaster medicine in the developing countries, this would leave dividends and mitigate future disasters in these countries. So in conclusion, let me repeat. Less than 1% disaster publications are about the developing world. The predominant perspective, even in this less than 1% publications, is by the developed world. Therefore, quality research by the developing world is needed, and aid for disaster research is preferable or in addition to acute humanitarian aid. Thank you so much for your patient listening.